And we are live, or as my brother Tim said, we are live at an away game for the men's circle. What's going on, First Row? It's your man, Coach Rowe. I'd like to welcome you to the First Row, and it is Tuesday. Every other Tuesday we have this. It should not be new. We have the men's circle coming to you live. Before I even jump into tonight's conversation, let me tell you something that I got a chance to do this week. This week, I had the opportunity to lock in the first men's circle in person live event. Um, that will be held on Sunday because I know a lot of people do things on the weekend. So Sunday, September 16th, we're going to get started at about 9:30 in the morning at the Sutter Fort Hotel in Midtown Sacramento. More details to follow, but I could not wait to share that. Like, the news is so fresh, I haven't even had a chance to finish the registration form for the event yet. But I will have that registration form out to you guys shortly, like real shortly, probably by the end of the Wednesday word tomorrow. So anyway, let's jump into tonight's topic. I have my brothers here with me for the men's circle. Tonight's topic is going to be on self-worth. And man, I've been dealing with this topic a lot lately, so I'm really looking forward to this conversation. But as always, I like to start with the topic on what does the topic mean to you? And before we get to what it means to me, I would love for my brothers, I'm going to go for the order in which I seen you come in. Brother Bruce, you're first. Introduce yourself and share a little bit about what this topic, self-worth, means to you.
Good evening. Thank you again, Billy, for having me. One of my favorite contents to ingest weekly or bi-weekly on this one. It's just one of my favorite spaces on the internet right now in terms of what it's giving back and how it's helping me grow. As far as the topic, self-worth, this is something that I've been struggling with for a while. To me, it means the ability to recognize the growth. It also means my ability to recognize my setbacks and the things that I'm still working on, the things that I still need to grow. And actually, that's been helping me just transform, be it at work, be it at home, especially at home, in how I interact with my wife and my children. Being more cognizant of my own worth and that being enough has led me to a space where it's just easier to navigate through the world, be it professionally, be it at home personally. So self-worth, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Love it. Love it. Next, I got you, Key, to the far right of me. Brother Key, welcome back. Go ahead. Let's introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about what the topic means to you.
Yeah, Key Bryant. Been friends with Billy for a long time, brother from another mother, and in the real estate game here in Sacramento. Other than that, man, self-worth. What it really means to me is it's basically knowing how to love yourself and knowing how to forgive yourself as well. I think that there's times when we can be hard on ourselves and not forgive things that we've done in the past and kind of let those things resurface when all you need to do is really hug yourself and say, you know what, that's what got me to where I am today. So I appreciate it and I keep it moving, learn lessons and keep going. So that self-worth of knowing that that you need to be as important to yourself just as much as anyone else is important in your life.
Love it. Love it. Next, I got you, Brother Tim. Introduce yourself and self-worth.
Tim Rushing, men's circle has become like a nice unseen routine for me these last few months, and it's really helped me a lot better. I go back, heard the story if you watched this or been a part of these. I can't even remember a time before me and Billy. So we go back a long ways, 30 something plus years. But self-worth is, to me, it's one of those things that, like you said it, Bruce, probably hit it pretty succinctly, which is I used to think I was the only one that struggled with this because men been conditioned not to talk, right? Like not to keep shit to yourself, struggle, keep your head down and grind. But the more and more you talk to men like us, you realize, man, it's not alone. We struggle with the self-worth or with the self-worth. Um, it's one of those things that I've been having a tug of war battle with for a long time. And it's important because as men, we tend to get our self-worth through accomplishments and what we've achieved. And sometimes you could put in all the work you want, work as hard as you want, and you don't achieve what you want, but the effort was still there. And Billy told me this, I don't know, maybe like 6 years ago. You probably don't remember telling me this. But what really helped me is smelling the roses. And that's an old saying we all heard. But Billy told me, I'll never forget, we were at what was that, the Chinese food place downtown?
P.F. Chang's? Because that's the only one I
P.F. Chang's, the one up right there in Makuni.
Yeah.
And you said, that's why they say smell the roses, because if you're a gardener, you don't take time to smell the roses. The only thing you know what smells is the soil and the manure. So you got to smell the roses every now and again. And I think that's my struggle, is giving myself the same grace I give others. I expect more out of myself than I expect more out of others. And sometimes, I struggle to give myself, like, the same way I'd encourage somebody else, I wouldn't do that to me. I would say, okay, what do I got to do to get better? And just getting better at that over the last few years. This is definitely a very poignant topic, especially for men, especially for men of our generation.
True. And Brother Glenn, appreciate you joining us tonight. Introduce yourself and self-worth.
Yes. Glenn Davis out here in Vacaville, California, personal financial strategist. And so actually Key hit spot on with how I define it. And so I'll just kind of add to it and saying, as far as like, when I think of the word self-worth, I kind of picture like a blank canvas. And like, as being the artist of that canvas, right, you have the different tools, and so those tools represents the thing you value, your confidence, your ability to lead, just all different types of things. And so I think all of that collectively um, ties into how you view yourself, right? So if you're looking at your canvas, like, how do you actually view that canvas? And so this is a great topic, man. I look forward to kind of hearing these brothers' stories and tying into the meanings and diving a little bit deeper, because this is a conversation that is not had a lot at certain tables. So happy to be here, man, and be at the table with y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to have you a part. Before I even go into self-worth for me, Glenn is the first brother that I actually talked to about the men's circle. It was like, hey, man, I have this concept, this idea that I'm thinking about bringing to the first row. And he was like, it's dope. Sign me up. And the fact that I know that we talked about your availability this month, the fact that you're still making time to show up, man, that just speaks volume to, number one, your character, but number two, the importance of these conversations being had. When it comes to me for self-worth, I always look at the self part first, and a lot like you, Tim, for a long time in life, myself, I didn't know how to look at myself and derive value. I just knew how to look at how others received me to derive value. And so when you're in that state, a lot of times you're putting pressure on yourself to perform in ways that maybe you don't even want to perform. I could think about, it's going to be a very interesting conversation tonight, but I could think about like females that I've hooked up with that I wasn't even really interested in like that. But the value that they seen in me made me have to say, in order to be this valuable person, I got to hook up with this chick and do whatever I'm doing with this chick in order to maintain that worth. Because the opposite of that would be, well, I didn't really want to hook up with this chick, but and I didn't. And so now she's going to tell everybody that worth is worth less, and not worthless, but worth less than what I thought it was. And so for a long time, my self-worth was contingent upon the worth that others were willing to assign. I'm going to say assign to me. And I don't even know how long it's been now that I've just been in this space where, like, yo, I got what I got. You gonna get what I give you, and that's the name of the game. But for me, self-worth is really about being able to understand your value to an extent that it cannot be disrupted externally. Some people might call that being delusional or whatever it may be, but the reality is if what they say, if the mind can believe it, the heart can receive it, and the world will achieve it, or something like that. But being able to have the mindset that you have value that is directly connected to you and is derived from you, not assigning that valuation of who you are or what you're worth or what you have to provide, not assigning that externally. What it does is it removes the pressures to perform, and it also provides the confidence to achieve. Um, Key being in real estate, I was just in Walmart. I had to get a charger for my laptop, and there was a real estate agent who came up to me, and she was like, "Hey, are you looking to do any kind of real estate?" And I was just like, "I don't even live here." but, but she was just like willing to kind of just talk to me at random about real estate. And the reality is that's her self-worth. And she was telling me, she was like, at one point I doubted, am I supposed to be in real estate? And I'm sure you can relate, where it's like sales is hard no matter what you're selling. It can be difficult at times. And she said, but I feel like I'm supposed to be in real estate. And so I've just stayed in real estate. And I remember there was one day where I was really ready to give up, and somebody just showed up to the office and was like, "I was referred to you. I was told you do great work, and I would like to work with you." Like, when we assign, and I'm going to continue with real estate, when we assign the fact that people are not going through us to do real estate transactions to our self-worth, it's easy to feel worthless, because it could just be not the right time for those people, or they could be not the right clients for you. But when we say, "Hey, look, I'm a realtor," when I say, "Hey, I'm an inspirational speaker, I'm a life coach, I'm a person who is compassionate and cares about people," when I'm looking at my internal values and my internal worth, now it doesn't matter if I'm not the most popular man on YouTube or most popular man on Instagram. None of that stuff matters to me, because the worth is not in the attention. The worth is intrinsically in me. So that's where, when I think about self-worth, where I go. But before we go into the full weeds of self-worth, I would actually like to talk about, have any of you had moments where you have felt worthless, and what was the derivative of that lack of worth, or those feelings of lack of worth? Have any of you ever experienced that?
I'll go because it was recent, and it was recent, and it was weird in terms of for the longest time, my worth was wrapped up in raising my children, loving my wife, being the best husband I could be, being the best dad I could be. But I woke up one day and I realized, shit, my kids are amazing, right? And my wife has never needed me. My wife does not need me. She's an independent woman. We just happen to work, but she doesn't need me. And so I had to face that one day. It's like, damn, the kids are almost grown enough. All of my parenting has turned into more guiding, making sure you stay on the path, as opposed to, hey, this is the path, this is why, blah, blah, blah. So once I got there, and then I'm watching my wife in her career, take off, like she's killing it. I get, damn, well, what the hell am I doing here? Like, do they even need me, right? which my wife, breaks down to me like that's completely bogus. But and as bogus as it might be to her, that's how it felt on the inside, right? Like coming to that point where shit, this ride's almost over. Like the kids are about to be grown, wife been killing it. What am I doing here? Tying up my worth, my actual belief when I look in the mirror, how I feel about myself, tied up with how much my family needs me is what made me feel worthless. But then I had to think about that. You must have done something right if your kids are doing good, your wife is doing good, everybody's still smiling, everybody's healthy. It forced me to start being more comfortable spending time with Bruce, right? Because for the longest time, my whole life was wrapped up in just being a dad, being a husband. And I know that feeling isn't just exclusive to men. I'm sure women feel that way too, right? I tell my wife all the time, you're not just a wife. You're not just a mother. You're still Elizabeth. You still got to get out there and do you. So giving her that information, giving her that advice, I have to listen to it too. But I think that was the time that I felt the most worthless, is not feeling like, my services as the father. I'm still the protector. I still got to get up and go to the door first if there's a bump in the night, right? But just feeling like, my role has been diminished by the good that I did. It was so weird. It was such a weird. I'm glad I pulled my head out of my ass, because those were dark days. I'm not gonna lie.
No, I feel you on that.
I could go. Thanks for sharing that with that, Bruce. It was funny because I identify with that. I kind of seen what you're going through coming through. Like, I'm the youngest of 6. My 2 oldest siblings right above me, they struggled with some transition as their kids needed them less. And then they had to confront, who am I? So I paid attention to that, and I was able to take roads. But I never really felt worthless, but I will say I felt like I cost too much. The price of being around me was too expensive for a lot of people. I'm a proud veteran. When I got back from that, I never really got a chance to process my brother's death, and I was carrying around a lot of. I was on like a level 11 all the time. Kind of, when I look back on it, kind of a pain to be around. And, it didn't matter if I was a perfect 5 or whatever you want to do on that scale. Me and my first wife we just weren't compatible. That was always going to end. But it's funny because I was in my darkest moment when I ran into him, the woman that's now my wife. And I remember we were seeing each other for we're like in month 3. And I was like, listen, we're getting pretty close. You don't want to be around somebody like me. I'm not right. There's something wrong with me. I kind of felt like I lost my place with humanity. Like, people weren't like people to me no more. They were like, I don't know, Sims characters. I got pretty cold. And my wife told me, she's like, I think you need to start seeing you for the man that I wish you could see you through my eyes, is what she said. And you need to start seeing the good that you have. Are you hard on yourself? Yeah. Are you wound a little bit tight? Sometimes, but and a lot of times, maybe you need to start thinking about why that is. And I just remember being pulled away, like, dang, I'm giving this woman an out, and she's doubling down. And I was like, if she sees something in me, let me start really looking and paying attention to myself. So I never really felt worthless. I just felt like I cost too much for a while. And that it's funny because we talk about self-worth, right? And I love how you put it, Billy, how, hey, you're gonna get what I give you, because what I'm giving you is what I got and what I am. I will admit I struggle with staying connected. I struggle with that because I've swung so far on the other end that I don't even care. about validating others. Like it's funny, like you'll watch people on social media, they're like, look at this, look at me, da, 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 look at this car I got, look at this. And I hardly post anything on there because I don't really care. The people that I care to know, they already know. They've already given me the feedback. I don't care what some random person from a long time ago did. And I don't know if that's right. I don't know where I'm at on that scale. Have I gone too far, or am I calibrated just right, or am I far from being okay with that? So it's a process and it's a journey. Um, but I'll give it over to whoever's next.
Well, before that, I want to bring in from the chat. It looks like Art had put some comments in here. Self-worth is having value in yourself and what you have done to influence others. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that towards the end of the show because that's really what the conference is going to be about. Also, he says, "Shoot, man, I'm currently feeling worthless, waiting on the military to transfer me to Florida. So in a sense, I'm employed but no longer working. But in order to get out of that funk, I enrolled in school and am using this moment to reset. Reset is hard to do." And then I think he was responding to you, Tim. He said deployments are hard and then feeling out of place. Man, that's a lot. And thank you for sharing that vulnerably. I appreciate it, Art. Um, but there is a lot in that. And you know, when I was thinking about the question about feeling worthless, there's only been a couple of times in my life where I felt worthless, but the most recent time where I was dealing with a worth situation wasn't my situation. It was with my son, and we were doing the exercise that originated from the men's circle about defining basically what our love strategy was. What's our love strategy for the year? And in talking to my son, everything that had to do with love meant he had to do something to earn it from others. It was never just like, I want to receive love because I'm worthy of being loved. It was like, if I clean the kitchen and the bathroom and do all my homework and do these things and do this and do and do and do for everybody else, then I'm worthy of love. And it's hard, especially in transition. It's really hard because the foundation of which your confidence is typically set on becomes complacent when you're comfortable. And so when you're in transition, the ground is unstable. And so you're in an uncomfortable state and going to a space where, hey, I'm used to having a regular routine. I'm used to being, at this place, at this location, at this time, and serving, and then coming back home and taking care of the kids or whatever that routine may be. When it begins to become turbulent, now all of a sudden you're trying to find your footing, and it's like, wow, I'm not doing the things that I used to do. So we as men, because of the provision, I'm going to call it the provision gene that many of us have, we immediately devalue ourselves. And this is something I was thinking about for myself, when I felt worthless. It's a time in my life. I've had a couple of times in my life where I've felt worthless, but I remember specifically with my oldest son's mother when she left. It was like I was doing everything I could to recoup that relationship and bring that relationship back into connection, and dealing with significant rejection, significant rejection. I remember getting to the point where I was just like, I don't even really want to live no more. Like, I just want to drown or die or not be here, because if I'm not going to be a husband and I've destroyed the unity between my son's mother and I, then what good am I? That means I'm not a good father. That means I'm not a good husband. So what the hell is the point of me being here? And that sense of worthlessness, it's interesting how you can have value, but if you perceive yourself to be worthless, the actions that you take on. So for myself, for the longest time in my life, I had never smoked. Like, don't smoke weed, don't smoke cigarettes, don't smoke nothing. And in that moment, I remember just being like, fuck it, what's the point? I could just smoke a cigarette because I'm not going to be here anyway, and I'm not worth being here anyway. And for me, that was one of those moments where fortunately I didn't give in to the desires of suicide, because I wouldn't be here having the conversation with you gentlemen. But it was one of those moments where I realized that in hindsight, anytime we start putting our value, our self-worth value, into external pots, we're discounting it. Anytime. Like, and not only are we discounting it, we are risking our value almost like a stock. Like, a stock can go to zero and a company could go bankrupt and you can lose all your money. Imagine when you're putting all your value into a relationship, and then that relationship goes bankrupt and they take that value with them. It's really hard to get it back. It's hard to reestablish the company. It's hard to reestablish the value. And so for me, when I felt worthless in those moments, I found myself actionably doing things that I didn't do when I understood my worth, when I understood my value. And those were some hard fights. It took a long time. I remember there's a picture I have where I literally am about as skinny as a crackhead, because I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't taking care of myself. And today, because of that, I now don't attach my self-worth to other things. So Tim, when you say I'm kind of like sometimes disconnected, I think sometimes people perceive it as a disconnection, but it's not disconnection. It's you're very connected to your worth. And when you are very connected to your worth, when somebody says, well, if you do that, I'm not going to talk to you. It's like when we were in school, in elementary school, I'm not going to be your friend. I don't care if you're not my friend. Do you know how many friends I have? You not being on the roster is not going to change the situation for me. Tag is still on at recess. So so that for me is where I'm at when I feel where I felt worthless, and seeing how it's trickled into the life of my middle son, how that's trickled into his life, and how now my role as a father is to try to guide him out of that earlier in life, so that he doesn't have those moments of self-worthlessness. What about anybody else?
Yeah, I'll chime in. I would say, even more recently, I don't know if it's necessarily feeling worthless or if it's attaching my value to those around me. Right. And when I say that, I'm talking about my family. So everything that you're hitting on, Billy, is really on point, where it talks about attaching your worth or your value to things outside of myself. And I think that what's weird about it is I actually feel like I love myself. I'm actually cool with myself. Like, I can go through whatever and be cool by myself. But I think what has changed as I got older in age, I think it just start feeling the gravity or the pressure of being that provider for your family, right? Your children, your wife, like being the head of the household type thing. So I've attached a lot of, I guess, my self-worth to that, in the sense of like when things go wrong, things go astray, things don't go as planned, business is different, not making the same amount of income, or things just switching up. It gets to a point where you're like, man, what's going on? I remember that. Just not too long ago. I felt like, man, it would be cool if I didn't wake up. Didn't contemplate any really suicide thoughts or anything like that. But it was like, what if I don't wake up? It'll be all right. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to have to face whatever new things I have to deal with on this day. And what I've come to find out is continuing to push and continue to be useful, to continue to have action. And then you start finding little things where you're like, oh, you know what? Nah, I do have some worth. I do have some value. All right, that went wrong, but it went right over here, right? And it's just like doing these little things to kind of give you this momentum of positive step forwards, right? And allows you to see that, you know what, no, there is some things that are important, and also kind of allowed me to step back and go, some things that are more important, like the relationship with the children. Like, instead of moping around and feeling a certain way, grab them, have fun with the kids, you know what I mean? Like, build a relationship with them instead of being in your mood or current state of feeling worthless, right? And that gets you out of that element. It gets you out of that space for that time being, so that way you can move on to the next. Um, but yeah, it's been something that I've I think I've always attached to outer things since I was a child. Like, that's what it's always been. You want moms to love you? Okay, clean up the house, do your homework, surprise her with doing this. Don't get a whooping today. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's always been something to, like, okay, how do I gain love? How do I gain um, you know, some type of worth? But what was important was the worth of people that I loved. It wasn't necessarily me, because I was always good with me. Like, if I was out in the streets, I'm gonna be good with me. I'm okay with that. It's the people that were around me that I find a lot of significance and importance with to this day. And I have to kind of remember that they hopefully love me regardless. They see me as someone of value, of someone of worth, right? And it's not necessarily I have to do all of these things this way in order for them to see worth in me.
No.
So that's kind of it's a weird dynamic, I feel like, because it's like at one point I'm like, no, I'm cool. I love myself. I can go work out. I can go do my own thing. I can chill. At the same time, it's like if I'm disappointing someone else that I love, um, then that mood comes down real quick.
No, I feel it. Glenn, you got something?
Yeah. Like, first and foremost, to Arturo, I salute you, man. Especially from being retired military, to know that the military moves when they want to move. But I will say, the reason why I want to say I salute you is because you being intentional about finding something to fill that void. And I think that, that's extremely key, because you can get into that dark space very fast, and it's super hard to get out of that. And kind of tying into self worth, like, I think that's where you start to devalue when you're attaching your things to something that you have no control over. So, man, so again, I salute you for serving our nation and doing what you do. Um, for me, I felt like the question is kind of like, it can be unpacked so many different ways. Uh, where I'm at now, and I'm like, my initial thought when you first asked the question, Billy, I was just like, nah, I've never felt that. You know what I mean? Just because I am very comfortable in who I am. I know what value I bring to the table. I know who I am. But then when I thought deeper about it, the last time that I really probably the last and probably the only time that I can remember feeling that way was in 2007, when I was going through a divorce with my wife, my first wife. And so, being again military, we were both military, we were, both fairly young, and kind of going through that, I got to a point where I was in that dark space where I lost sight of completely who I was, because I had so many emotions attached to that time or that situation. And I remember telling myself, I never want to feel like this again, because for a split second, I had a suicidal thought. And, to know the significance of how that can impact so many, the thing that made the thought very quick is because my oldest son at the time was my only son. And I thought about him growing up without a father when I felt that growing up without a father. So the thought was very, very quick. And I reminded myself, was like, hey, you need to find out who you are. You need to find out how you tick. You need to find out all these things about you. So you have to spend time with yourself. And so, mid 20s, I had the opportunity to do that. So the exercise and practice that for the next 15 years, you know, I, I, I'm very, very comfortable while still defining and or sharpening those rough edges, right? To really define my self worth, so that, because I am an example to my kids, I am an example as the leader of the house. And so I think that I've conditioned my mind to like block that out, to be like, hey, you are who you are. You are who God created you to be. Just continue to be a better version of yourself. So that's kind of where I'm at. But if I had to highlight one time, it was back in 2007.
I think you're on mute, bro. I don't hear you.
It's because I have this fan in the background. But it's always interesting to me how we can remember the year when the thought came. No matter how brief, no matter how quick, subtle, long, we all remember the time in which it happens. It's like a vivid memory. You remember, you might be able to remember the air, the weather, and everything that was going on that day, what you was wearing. But it's you're actually tapping into my next question is how do we begin to repurpose our self-worth when we have these worthless moments? Because there can be the if you don't know how to swim, right? You can be in the pool, you can go to the bottom, jump off the bottom, get back up, take a breath of air, go back down, jump back up, and you can probably do that for a while. But at some point, you're going to drown because at some point you're going to be tired of jumping up and getting little bursts of air. And so how do we repurpose ourselves to where when we have those thoughts, our recovery is quicker versus lingering in the thoughts of I'm worthless, I don't even know what I'm doing, because there's tons of mistakes that I make probably in a given day, but I don't harp on them. But when you're in a space where your self-worth is trending down, when you're in that space, it's easy to make a mistake. It's easy to want to run away, and what other place can we run as men but to death, right? Like, that's where suicidal thoughts come from, because death is going to take it all away. But I actually had a consultant once tell me, he was working for me on a project. He was like, Billy, I learned a long time ago that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And in that same regard, when we are devaluing our self-worth, that's a temporary problem. We always have the ability to turn it around so long as we're here. The problem is that many of us get caught up in the deflation of our worth and in our lives. I mean, you can look at the suicide statistics. It's definitely men that are pulling triggers and into their lives more so than women. I think part of that might be because it's not socially or culturally in the United States acceptable for men to say, hey, I'm struggling with things. We're just now getting to that. Like, just now getting to the point where men can say, hey, look, I'm struggling with some thoughts. And nobody's like, you a bitch.
No, you're
right?
absolutely
right.
Right. You're absolutely right. When girls get together, when women get together and have their cry session, they then brainstorm ways to get out of it. You said, women are, oh, girl, I don't feel the girl. Come on, girl, let's go shopping. Guys, we can't call you boys, hey, guys, I'm really feeling down, because you get quit acting like a bitch, pull your pants up, put your chest out, walk it off. You get all these random things.
Did you get your period? Did you get your period? Right.
Right. All these things that devalue you as a human and absolutely gloss over the fact that these human emotions are not they're not new, they're not uncommon. Like we think that men having emotions and having feelings and having thoughts of worthlessness or suicidal, like these are common in most humans. It's a human experience, right? But for some reason, you're a man, that's put on the back burner. It's downplayed. It's not highlighted as much as it should. And that's why this segment, this men's circle, is so important. And the people that I've shared it with, the young men that I've shared it with, are like, damn, Bruce, thank you for sharing this, because this is what we need. We need to have a space where we can talk about it, right? To answer your question, though, for me, what I've learned, and I had to do this the other day, like when my brain goes to where it goes, I go straight to the water, whether it be the ocean, whether it be the river. I take myself to where I need to go to recharge, right? And I was having a day at work the other day, and after the meeting, I closed the laptop, jumped in my truck, and just drove to the beach. Told my wife, hey, this is where I'm going to be at. I'll be home later. And that really works for me. Now, I don't get to do that every time because, I drive a tank and gas is expensive or whatever. But finding that thing that definitely will bring you back is something that I can't stress enough. And that's something my therapist told me, actually. You need to find that thing that brings you back, is exactly how he said it. And the first thing I thought of was the ocean. It's always the ocean for me. You find what it is for you and then be unapologetic about it, right? I don't give a damn. I got to put $80 in the gas tank, drive 2 hours to get to this ocean. That's where I'm going, and it's going to heal me. And of course it did. As soon as my toes hit the sand, I felt better. As soon as the air changed, you know how you get closer to the ocean and that air change. Every time that happens, I instantly feel better. So, I mean, that's how I go about it.
I got some thoughts on the difference between men and women thing. I've been thinking about this. It's funny when Billy, you sent me the topic this morning, and I've been thinking about this specific thing and how I don't sound like a jerk when I say it, but hell, I'm just going to let it rip. The reason why you said there's some reason why for men it's a little bit different. Here's the reason. Our society is structured to where we can't see a woman cry or be upset. We got to prop them up, and we're conditioned to make women feel good. Women and children feel good. You look beautiful in that dress. You look your hair, what'd you do with it? So we're constantly the ones pouring out that emotion. But, how often do you hear that the other way in society for men? On top of that, as men in general, we're really good with us taking account of, we're typically good with taking accountability when we've done something wrong, and we try to own the fault in it. Conversely, it doesn't seem like that's that way for women. I'll give you an example. How many of you have seen or been involved in a situation where a woman is unfaithful to somebody, and somehow that gets turned around to being the man's fault? Well, you didn't spend enough time with me. You didn't make me feel like I was worth your time. And it's like, but a man, when he cheats, he'll say, you know what, I messed up. I'm sorry, please forgive me. You know what I mean? So
baby, please, baby.
That too. Right. We're better at handling fault, but if we're taking on fault, and then even when it's not our fault, we're taking on fault from the other, that's why it seems like we got too many loads to bear, or why it seems like it's hard to carry. It's funny, and I've been thinking about this as well. Like when you're on a plane and they give you the safety briefing, they always tell you to put your own mask on first. How often do we do that as men, though, for self-worth? We do the opposite. For the fathers that are in here, which I think is all of us. Yeah, it's all of us. You wouldn't even think twice. You would take a bullet for your kid and you would die in front of them if it meant saving them. So that's a noble and honorable thing. However, you're starting to already, their life's more valuable than yours. So where do you stop that line on what's more valuable than you? Because everything starts becoming more valuable than you. It's my one of my daughters, she was like, she told me about something. She was like, yeah, you haven't bought any new shoes since you got those shoes that I was wearing at the time that you see me. And I thought about that. I was like, man, there was a time where I had all types of shoes and clothes, and that was like my thing. But I've gotten so detached from that because in the service of others, making sure everybody else is good, it's not who I am anymore. So I would challenge that and say, I don't think it's for some reason. It's because we're willing to take the load. And the reason why men get treated the way we do, I'll say it like I've said a few times on this, on these shows, is we do it to ourselves over and over again. We take on the blame. We take on the reasons of why something's not working. Sometimes you could just be an unfaithful person. It ain't always the guy's fault. And then what do they tell us, right? They tell us, you need to communicate with us until they don't communicate with us, then we should have been able to read their mind, and you should have known. You know what I mean? It's funny, like the stories and the things that you experience and you live through. But that's why I feel it happens to men. So if any women do watch this, I'm a husband
Tim.
and a father of 3 girls. I love girls. But man, it just seems like that's what I'm seeing.
You're not.
Show me that I'm wrong. Ain't that the meme?
Right.
Prove
No,
me wrong.
because nothing that you said was wrong, in my opinion. You know, I got a wife and 2 girls as well. But something that you said that resonated and it hit so home me is that we do it to ourselves as men. Now, for me, the very first time that I decided that, you know, I'm gonna take my therapist's advice, I'm gonna put me first. I'm going to move for Bruce, and I'm gonna see what it's like. I went to the beach. I drove all the way to the beach, bro. Got there. I'm by myself. I got my little lunch packed. I'm good. There's nothing needed. I get to the little lookout spot. I sit there. I eat my little lunch, and I'm having a panic attack. I feel guilty. I feel like I'm doing something dirty in terms of my kids aren't here. This is beautiful. My wife should be here too. Everyone should be here enjoying this with me, but I'm doing this little getaway just for me for the most beautiful reasons. And like you said, we do it to ourselves. Now I'm sitting here feeling guilty, feeling like I've done something wrong. Why is it that you feel this way, Bruce? Why, as a man, when you start doing things for yourself, even if you're in the right, why do you feel that, man? And that was a hard feeling to navigate. Like the first time I went to dinner by myself and sat down at the restaurant with my book, like, damn, my kids should be here. My wife should be here. I should be having dinner with them. But I've had dinner with y'all 1,000 times. We've been together for 20 years. Like, how many times have you had dinner by yourself, Bruce? This was the first time, and I'm sitting there like, this is amazing. Not only is it cheaper, hello. I'm just saying, it's crazy how we do that to ourselves, though. Like when you're being intentional, for all y'all listening, when you're being intentional about your validation, self-validation, self-worth, don't feel bad. As long as you ain't hurting nobody, you know, you ain't doing nothing you ain't supposed to be doing. But and that feeling to get over, it's weird. It's weird as hell at first. Now I'll slide and let them know, hey guys, I'm leaving. Dad's leaving. He'll be back. You're right. I'm out. But getting over that at first, it's weird, and we end up doing it to ourselves. Because my wife is like, of course we need you mentally strong and mentally healthy. Of course I need you at your best. How can you be the best for me if you're not the best for yourself? So not only did I didn't know that my kids and my wife would give me that space, right? I had no idea. I was too scared to even broach that, you know, but after you break the dam down, the water get to flowing. I like it.
Right, and then you start thinking about it like, does she feel guilty about when she's getting her nails done? Probably not. So why are you feeling guilty about getting some you time? You get what I mean? It's crazy how when you think about how we wrap our minds around that, like the guilt and man, you know, this is wrong, this is not right. You know, when you prioritize yourself and how we've been conditioned so far one way that it feels wrong when we buck that. But I didn't mean to interrupt, Billy. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's because often when we hear the word self, the next word is fish. It's not worth. It's not care. It's not nurture. It's not love. It is fish. So if the word after self is fish, then that means for me as a man to take time for myself, anything involving self is going to create a feeling of guilt. It's going to create a feeling of angst and panic because I'm not doing what I perceive I should be doing. Again, is that provider gene. As the provider, I'm providing peace and calm for myself, and I should be also providing that for my family. Well, if you don't provide it for yourself, I can guarantee you at some point you're not going to provide it for your family, like at all. And so for me, when I think about like repurposing my worth, it always has to come back to that you're gonna get what I give you. And then asking myself is what I am giving, is that of value to me? It's almost like that Bible story, the woman with I think she had like the 2 talents or something like that. And everybody in the room is bawling. Imagine everybody a billionaire and everybody's like, I gave Jesus $1. I gave Jesus $1. This woman gives her 2 cents that she has, her last 2 cents. And in the Bible, he says, she gave more than all of you because she gave her last 2 cents. You guys are giving out of your abundance. She's giving out of the abundance of her heart. And when I look at that scripture and I think about myself as a man, it's like, I know when I say you're going to get what I give you, I'm not giving you, beans and rice. You're getting like steak and lobster because I'm giving you the best of me. But also, I know that if you're going to get what I give you, I deserve to get what I give. And it's not I deserve to get what I give to you from you. It's I deserve to get what I give to others to give to myself. And it goes back to Tim in a couple of these conversations where you say that we have unrealistic expectations for unreliable people. And so when you make that unrealistic expectation that I'm going to give you the best of me and expect you to give me back the best of you, and that's going to determine how much you give back to me, tells me how much I was worth because I gave you first, right? I gave to you first. When you have that unrealistic expectation on a unreliable source, then they give you back, a chicken bone and some chicken broth. You like, yo, I gave you a whole chicken, some potatoes and green beans, and you just gave me back the bone and put some water in it and boiled it for a couple of hours. Like,
You share the meat with somebody else. Yeah.
right. So now I'm a person who feels like, well, maybe I'm not worthy of the meal that I gave you, even though I am because I'm the person who created that meal or gave that meal. But maybe I'm either giving it to the wrong source, or maybe I need to work on sometimes, just like you said, Bruce, stepping out and having dinner by myself. It is a hell of a lot cheaper. Sometimes I get my bills when I'm by myself and I'm like, dang, this is how much food costs? Because other than that, like when you're out with like a family of four, just even with just you and your wife at a nice dinner, like then you go out by yourself and it's like, dang, did y'all take something off for your boy? Like, because this price ain't pricing right. But it's the reality for me, like how I repurpose my worth is I always come back to, if you've been giving it to other people, you can give it to yourself. And being in the position like where I'm in, for instance, today I'm in a hotel. I'm in this position to where the place I was staying at, the AC went out, and I was like, "Hey, look, I can't do another day at 103, 105 with no AC. That is not an option." And so I was like, "Don't worry, I'll just get a room." And they're like, "I'm so sorry, I'm sorry the AC went out." I was like, "Look, I'm grateful that you gave me a space to stay. I just can't stay there because I need air conditioner, air conditioning." But to then say, you know what, Billy, because before I would just guilt myself and say, look, you're not worth going and staying at a hotel. Like, figure out something else. But being in the space that I'm in now, my worth is just, hey, you're worthy of AC. Like, and that's a crazy thought to have, to think at a point in my life I wouldn't feel like I was worthy of air conditioning. And to be now in a space in my life where I'm like, not only am I worthy of AC, God has blessed me with the financial capacity to be able to get a room if I need to get a room. How easy life is. But when we start doubting and devaluing ourselves, and again, often it comes from putting our value in external sources, and we can go down parents and being in toxic relationships. I mean, sometimes it's not even like overt. I'm sorry, covert, where people are devaluing you. Sometimes they just look you in your face and say you ain't shit. Like, you ain't shit. He ain't shit. Well, you'll be standing there and they will tell other people while you standing there that you ain't shit. And that is wild to me. And my wife has given me this feedback in regards to whenever I feel like somebody says something that is counterintuitive to what my truth is about myself, I got a list, and it don't take hard. It's not that I'm keeping track of anything. but I have a list of the things that I know that I do and that I'm willing to do in order to be a compassionate person, in order to be an understanding person, in order to be an affectionate person, in order to be a communicative person. I have a list of all these things that I do. So when people say things that bump up against what my self worth is, now I'm trying to work on not being defensive because I don't have to defend my self worth. Before I would be like, damn, maybe I am a jerk. Maybe I am this. Maybe I am that. And now I'm to a place where it's like, no, here's the list of the things that I do that clearly state that I'm not what you're saying I am. But now I'm trying to reel that back to a space of where, like, you're entitled to your opinion about me. And my worth that I have of myself and in myself, that worth lets me know that I don't need to try to debunk something that I know not to be true.
Right.
And
And that shit can show up other ways where someone doesn't even just say you ain't shit. They say, oh, you think you're hot shit. Like when you start doing well, they're like, oh, you think you're the
too
cock of the
good.
block. And then they feel the need to like humble you. It's like, it's funny because as time has gone on, I've seen that as, man, that's a reflection of you. I'm sorry, your life is the way it is, and I'm gonna pray for you. I don't even take you serious anymore. But at the same time, kind of zapping my energy. You gotta, we gotta part ways at this stage of the journey together. But that analogy you gave about the stock market and what you invest yourself into, and then you're hoping those companies don't go bankrupt. God damn, that's one of the best analogies I think I've ever heard. So, give you props for that.
You said something else, Billy. I'm sorry to cut you off, Tim. I was trying to cut him off.
No, you're good. I was done.
You said something else, Billy. I wanted to cut Billy off a minute ago because he said something great. Now, it's funny how growth works, especially for me, and it ties into what you said earlier too. That part, Tim, about smelling the roses, right? So, Billy, in the last thing you said about not feeling like I'm worthy of air conditioning, right? If you know me, if you've ever been out to eat with me, you'll know I don't send the plate back, bro. I don't care what's wrong with the plate, bro. It's going to take a very lot for me to be like, hey, ma'am, can you? And I didn't understand what that was about until recently. I didn't think I was worthy of you making my plate again, right? Like that's who the fuck? Excuse me, who even thinks that, right? And I tell my wife because my wife, she had like her aunt and her sister. They rude as hell, and they always send in plate backs. And every time we go to eat, I'm just like, this is so. What did the kids call it? Cringe or whatever. It's so just uncomfortable that you would harass these people. But I take myself to lunch the other day, and for the very first time in my life, I think for real, in my adult life, the very first time, ma'am, I need you to take this plate back. And what it was for me was that little sign of growth. Like I'm going to pay you this money, right? I'm worthy of eating this plate the way I asked for it, right? And it's crazy how it be those little things that, to me, I never thought of it like that. I never thought that my unwillingness to send the plate back was a direct reflection of how I viewed myself and what I thought I was worth or not. But now that I'm on that path, I'm not letting nothing slide. I'm not, but of course, I'm not being an asshole about it, but I value me now. I'm worthy of all of the good things. Like, not to sound like an asshole or anything like that, you know what I mean? But actually feeling worth within yourself, you'll see the little changes in yourself, and it's liberating, I would say.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I'll probably add to the repurposing your worth. I think I said it before, but action is one thing for me. Like, it might take me a while to act because I'm feeling down, but I know I gotta do some action. So usually that comes from something physical. Like, I might get into the gym if I feel like there's something I need to run away from. I will literally go sprint outside like a pit is chasing me. Like, no joke. And I will sprint. Next thing you know, like, all of that anxiety or whatever it was I was feeling has dissipated. I come from an athletic background, so sports was always my thing. And so the physical aspect of doing something, getting out there, doing something physical, working out, doing something really extraneous, helps to quiet a lot of the anxiety. And then going from there, it's like, okay, now I'm doing something small to show my value. I don't start off with something really big, a really daunting task. I'll do something simple like I'm about to help the wife do the dishes real quick. Right? And then do that and then do something else small. Now, okay, now I'm gonna get back to this client that needs this, right? Little small stuff, incremental little steps. And by the end of the day, I look back at how I felt in the morning and I go, why in the hell did I feel like that in the morning? I wasted an hour of feeling down, right? And all I had to do was hurry up and apply action. So now the steps of learning is more of, okay, apply action faster, and get faster. So that way you that unworthiness that you're feeling, you can get through it quicker. So that's the way I repurpose it. I just sit there and I just apply action, physical, and then little incremental actions throughout the day.
Got it. Love it. Love it. So, Glenn, I'm sorry. Did you have anything you wanted to add? Oh, you got the little one with you. I got you. I got you.
He's
So,
like how you were
repurposing
able to
as we
read that,
speak.
bro.
hey, that's fatherhood 101. It's like, oh, both arms is outside the camera. That's a body.
Right.
But when it comes to the actual the meat and potatoes for self-worth, I love, number one, Bruce, what you said, being willing to send a plate back. And I'm gonna have to assess myself on that, because I think mine comes from a place of service. Like, I've been in the service industry, and it's like, if it's not that broken, I'm not gonna trip about it. But at the like they back what Kevin Hart would say, with the price of gas, with the price of food today, look, if I said no onions, I said no onions. Like, this is not a pick the onions off situation anymore. This is, I'm gonna get a plate that didn't have onions on it. Period. And I in the last trip my wife and I took, um, one of the things that was interesting, because I like to think, even when I'm out and even at fancy restaurants, I'm a simple person, right? But one of the things that was really eye-opening to me, we went to this really nice steakhouse, and it was a really expensive steakhouse. And my wife's steak didn't come out how she wanted it to come out. And we can go into the psychology of, well, they're going to think, oh, here these people go because they really don't want to pay for it. We can go down that route. But the reality for me was like, hey, this is a really expensive steak, and it probably should be cooked to the temp that we want it to be cooked to. And they took it back and they brought it back out, and it was cooked perfectly. And what was wild to me was the host came over. We lost Kate. The host came over, and he was like, hey, I heard that the steak didn't come out to the table the way that you had asked for it to come out. How can we make that right? Is everything okay? Is the steak now? Like, when they brought the steak back, I want to see and make sure that this is to your liking. Like, they valued me more as a customer than I valued myself as the consumer who's spending his hard-earned money, right? And how often do we do that type of stuff in, like, the dumb relationships that we keep, whether it's like intimate relationships or friendships or jobs, whatever it may be? How often do we take on that mentality to where I'm just grateful to be here? I've been at jobs. Actually, I went to go and visit an old job earlier today, and I was just kind of like, God took me out of this place for 100% of a reason, because I couldn't see myself being here now in the condition that this place is in. But how often do we just sit and ride and ride and ride and ride in these environments that we weren't even supposed to be in because we don't feel like we're worth anything more. I will tell you, my life, especially when I started looking from the professional standpoint of my own self worth, my parents taught me don't quit a job until you have a job, right? Can't go to zero. Don't quit a job before you have a job. The last job I quit, or the job before the last job I quit, um, I didn't have a job lined up. But I was like, inherently, I know you're not paying me what I'm worth. And because you're not paying me what I'm worth, and I know what my self value is, you don't get to get this at a discount. I'm out. And I left. And I left that organization and moved to an organization where I got 28% more income because I understood my self worth. And then in that organization, it was like, hey, I really want these types of opportunities. And they weren't able to provide those opportunities. Hey, an opportunity came up that's going to provide those opportunities. I got to go. Whereas, especially being the baby boomers, a child of a baby boomer, right? Where they were able to work 40 years for the same company and then retire. Like 40 years in, retire. Not the plan I'm going with. More power to them and they plan, but not the plan I'm going with. Um, but understanding your self worth will have you take actions that a lot of people are uncomfortable with. Because in order to like quit what my parents would consider a good paying job, right? You quit a good paying job. What you doing? That's a good job. Yeah, but they're not paying me what I'm worth. It would be a great job if they were paying me what I was worth, but they're not paying me what I'm worth. And I know that I'm worth more. So I'm going to go and seek that with a confidence and a belief that I can actually obtain it. And so when you talk about not being willing to send a plate back, that's the microcosm of which that greater experience exists. Because if I can't send a plate back, how the hell am I going to quit a job?
Right. And if somebody's willing to have you at a discount in one aspect of your life, you don't think they're going to try to get you to discount on every aspect? Like, oh, let me have you train this person and not pay you as a trainer. Let me have you mentor and be a leader and manage this group. But we won't call you a manager. You'll just be in your role. You got to be careful. That discount is a slippery damn slope. And then you do got to say, okay, I've been getting better at what's in this for me, which is a question that I never really asked myself. It's funny. We disguise these things as men. It's really that we don't feel we're worthy, but disguise it as being loyal. We're loyal to this.
Loyal. Ooh, that's a lie. All right.
Loyal, man. And it's funny. No, you're hitting some great points. Like the baby boomers. A baby boomer, that generation can't even comment on what's going on today because it's totally different scenarios. The reason why you could work one job is because it was simpler times. You were able to work one job back then, and that one job didn't require a second income, and you could buy a house, a car, and supply groceries. That's now what's happening is we're seeing it as it is. This is a business relationship because before they would play into your loyalty, and you're willing to invest in something and build something. And they would justify that why they're not giving you the raise you think you deserve or the opportunity you're quote unquote not ready for, right? But it's funny how somebody else will, and you go and you move on to these other places and you look and you're like, dang, I'm so glad. I look back at some of the places I worked and I say the same damn thing. I'm so glad I'm no longer there. And it's worked out well. But you have to be willing to avoid things like career claustrophobia. Like people don't realize that's a thing when, okay, if you don't know what's next, is there anything next? if you don't snap out of it, you could be 5 years gone and you're still the same you in the same position, doing the same damn things. Now, if you're happy, that's one thing. So, are you happy? Do you have aspirations? And the kind of like the self-assessment. But it's funny how that gets tied into your self-worth, because men as providers, careers, income, that has replaced the bow and the arrow and the knife to provide. Before, we just had who was the biggest, strongest hunter, who could go get me some food. Now it's who could provide a lifestyle where I get to sit and chill. What are they watching nowadays? The women probably like some Gilmore Girl reruns or some shit. I don't even know what women watch nowadays. But who could provide me the thing that where I could chill and binge watch.
Right.
So it's just funny how that goes, and it's funny how sometimes loyalty will be that anchor that drags you down. If I would have valued loyalty and trying to that stick to itness, and that you don't give up on something and you just gotta make it happen. I would have never met the woman that's my wife now, and I will tell you, I don't got it all together. I have a poor calibration of myself. I don't recognize when I need certain things. We just got back from a vacation, hence the shirt. We had a team meeting and the shirt was out from when we got back, where we went on a cruise, and I didn't even know that we were going on a cruise. She said, "Hey, we're going on a cruise in a month," and I was like, "Really?" And she was like, "Yeah, you need it." And I was like, "What do you mean I need it?" And she was like, "Trust me, you haven't done anything for yourself in a while. You need it." The time before that, she got with Billy and sent me out to Utah because I needed it, because she seen it and she recognized it and she cared enough to make it happen for me, even when I wasn't going to give it to myself, because I was like, grind, next thing, next obstacle, next objective. I wasn't smelling the roses. So that loyalty thing is we got to be careful how we're labeling, and we have to be honest with ourselves. Is it because we don't feel worthy, or are we using masking things like loyalty and integrity, or whatever you want to mask it as? But yeah, I'll turn it over to whoever's next.
Or fear, Tim. Fear is another one of those things. When we're masking it, when we putting that mask on, fear is something that we don't want to confront, and especially in the career space, right? That fear of the unknown, or the fear of taking a step back. Like, most of us get comfortable, like, damn, this is the most money I've ever made. I should be happy with that. Remember we said that, well, I should be happy. The fear of maybe taking a step back, but knowing that you're going to do the same level of work in 3 years and you'll be in a better place than staying right here for 3 years and not moving anywhere. That's good, Tim. Thank you.
And on top of that, the fear could be a manipulator too. How many, you look at how many times, when you think back when you're younger, how many times you did some dumb shit, it was usually, for me at least, is, oh man, you're scary, or you're this, and you're like, oh, kind of like that Marty McFly, like, who you calling chicken? You know what I mean? I'm gonna show you I'm not chicken. So it's funny, as men, that's like one of the worst things. Like, back in the days, they say, oh man, you're yellow, you're a coward. Like, you poll 9 out of 10 men. If you told them the worst thing you could call them, a lot of them are going to come up. You don't call me a coward. Right. So it's funny. Fear is natural, and we're okay to have fear. But for a man to admit that they're scared, they're a coward. So we got to live with that on our own. Whereas the other sex, the women, they get to tell you, oh, I'm so scared. I'm worried about so-and-so. And they can tell you everything, and they can let it all out. So it's just very interesting.
Yeah, that's funny, because the coward part, and I see you come off mute, Glenn, you might be available now, but the coward part, it's funny because I could only, in my mind, I see there's a bump in the middle of the night. I can't turn to my wife and be like, babe, I'm scared. Right? She's like, well, you and your gun better go downstairs scared. Like, she's not going to be like, okay, I got it. And so you're right, for a lot of us as men, when that fear aspect comes up, even that loyalty aspect, sometimes we're just loyal to the wrong things. There's no problem with loyalty, but here's how you can tell when you have been loyal to a company and they know that they've been getting you at a discount. You finally say, okay, I'm going to leave. And they hit you with the counter offer. So wait a minute. You had 20,000 more dollars that you could have been giving me, but it took me leaving in order for you to give it to me. I'm going to tell you every single time, I don't want it.
How long you been holding that?
Right. You're going to have to
Knowingly.
give me 60,000 because you've been holding that for 3 years. That'll catch me up. Then we can talk. Like that counter offer. So people know, companies know, people know when they've had you at a discount, and that and how loyal of an employee you are. That loyalty discount that is not working in your favor. Go ahead, Glenn. I'll give up the mic.
No,
Papa
you
Glenn.
guys, what's up? You guys are spot on, man. My oldest son threw an audible at me, but we adjusted. One of the 2 points that I was going to make when the initial question just still ties into all this is about environment, right? So as like you placing yourself in the right environment, and so when it comes to even a job situation that we're talking about, right? Like asking yourself, hey, is this the right environment, right? Like you being able to know your worth enough to, when they come back with the counter, right? Do you now allow that counter to draw you back in because the carrot is still dangling, or do you know yourself enough to just walk away like Billy said and just like, no, I know my worth, right? And if you guys had that all this time, why does it take for me to take an about face and get ready to leave the table for you to kind of bring this to the table? And so
Like you're buying a used car or some shit.
right. Exactly. This is some great stuff, man. I was just checking out the YouTube chat. It's some good stuff.
Yeah. Nick said, y'all about to make me quit today earlier. Had me cracking up. I said, I don't encourage, but I understand. I understand. Because
Hey, I want to say. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to say something to Arturo real quick, because as Glenn, me and you, military veterans, that's always really sensitive to me. I'll tell you something, Arturo, that really helped me. I figured out what was the core reason of my crap was I realized that as I needed purpose as a man. And when the purpose is given to you, that's what the military usually does. Then it's kind of like that hamster little water thing where the hamster is sucking the little water thing. That's the purpose, right? But what happens is when the military puts you on the shelf, they no longer supply you with that purpose. So I will tell you, if there's things that you've been taking and putting on the back burner because your service has been too demanding and you haven't been able to get to it, this is the time that you focus that purpose on that. If it's getting in shape, if it's working on that car that you always wanted to work on, if it's enter whatever X is, this is the time you put your energy into that and you give yourself a purpose. And when you do leave the military, that's going to be one of your hardest transition. Is the purpose isn't going to be supplied to you. You're going to have to discover it. So start thinking about those things now, Jero. And again, thank you for your service. Go ahead, Billy.
No, there's no missions. No missions in civilian life. You got to create those. Unfortunately, you would think that the civilian life would come with some missions, so there'd be more structure and guidance. But there's no missions.
That's crazy that you. That's crazy that you said what you said, Tim. Because you hear that. I mean, I like sports. I'm not an athlete or nothing like that. But you hear a lot of athletes saying the same thing. Football gave me purpose. It gave me structure. I knew what I was doing when I woke up from blah, 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 blah. And it's funny being a civilian, and the closest thing that I have to what you guys are explaining is the situation with my children being older and trying to find purpose on my own. Now what's my mission, right? But I love the advice you gave them, because since I've had my little, episode, I've started reading more, and I've always loved reading, you know what I mean? But I've actually found time to put that energy there, because the energy that I was putting in they don't need that anymore, right? Well, like he said, Arturo, the military might not need you at this moment, but you're always going to need yourself. And so you should always, anytime you have time, I agree with Tim, always repurpose your energy on something that benefits you. I love it. That's such great advice, Tim.
Yeah, you're also going to struggle with people's bullshit in the civilian world. I'm going to tell you right now, people are going to make mountains out of nothing. You're going to be live times where, like, it's kind of like the athlete thing you said, Bruce, is where the highs are so high that the baseline is like, why are we complaining about this? Like, why are you upset about that? Like, I've nearly died so many times and in convoys and doing I don't even know how it slipped my mind, but doing like things in Iraq and in the city in Baghdad and like doing these little rotations where you're on guard and stuff like that, where you're patrols in the city. And so much crazy shit's almost happened. When I got back, it was like, you're breaking down and crying over this dumb shit. Like, it's you start getting, you got to be careful with that, and you got to understand that your perspective is different than others. And in that time, you had to be kind of like more machine than person, and you got to start becoming more person again. So that's you got this, Arturo. Everybody goes through it. The stuff that you're going to be feeling, you ain't going to be alone. Trust me. Keep coming to the men's circle. We got you.
All day. I can't see if you're muted, Glenn. Oh, you are muted. Okay, sorry. It looked like you had brought yourself off mute to say something. My bad. So we're rapidly approaching towards the edge of the show, and there's some things I got to talk about tonight. So I want to start getting us some closing thoughts when it comes to self-worth. I'm going to give my thought last. Sorry, I was thinking if I was going to give my thought right then, but I'm going to give my thought last. Bruce, you're up top. You were here first. I'm going to have you share your closing thoughts on self-worth.
My closing thoughts on self-worth are, it's more important than you think it is, right? So if you think it's super important, it's more important than that. We are the only, you, yourself, me, Bruce, I'm the only one that can validate me, right? Like, self-worth is inherently from within, right? It's so important for me. One of my favorite inspirational dudes is David Goggins. He talks about, in his book, Can't Hurt Me, he talks about the accountability mirror. The reason why I feel like I'm good at my profession right now, managing people and raising my children, and is because I have conversations with myself all the time, honest ones, right? So I don't have a problem looking you in your face and telling you that your shit stinks, right? I also don't have a problem hearing that, right? Because, so for me, self-worth is being intentionally honest with yourself. Tim said it. Billy said it. Glenn mentioned, touched on it. Everyone touched on it. Taking that time to smell the roses, right? Like, that has been the biggest catalyst for consistency for me in validating myself, is intentionally taking the time to recognize, hey, Bruce, you handled that different, right? And it's one thing when I hear it from my kids or I hear it from my wife, like, I appreciate that. But now that I'm on this mission for me, it's way more beneficial. It's way more meaningful when I recognize that, hey, I did that better. Because it adds to my self-worth. It adds to my self-validation. And I would say anybody on a growth mindset, anybody on a growth journey, please do yourself a favor. If it's journaling, if it's weekly reflections, I know Glenn talks about his accountability partners and meeting weekly and going over it, like, always checking to make sure that you're on the path, however you got to do it. You know what I mean? I mean, that's my thoughts. That's my thoughts on it.
Cool. Tim, I think you came in next.
I want to hear Glenn. Glenn was rubbing his hands. He's ready to go. So I won't delay Glenn.
Hey, I was
Go ahead, Glenn.
I got 22 seconds. Let me no. Oh man. First and foremost, that I just finished David Goggins' book. Can't Hurt Me. It's not for everybody. Like I think it's definitely not for everyone, but phenomenal book. I enjoyed listening to it. Um, and so regarding this piece, I would say uh, date yourself. Like if you can go back to those moments where you first started liking this girl or the opposite sex or whatever, and you were trying to do the little things to grab her attention or grab their attention, um, in the sense of doing the little things, right? Being intentional with what you're actually going to say, what you're going to do, the time that you're going to spend, sacrificing the stuff that you like to do for the things that you actually need to do or to want to do to build that up. I would say take all of that and all that energy and pour that into yourself, right? Because when you date yourself, you start learning new things about yourself. You start really understanding, like I said earlier, the things that actually make you tick, the things that you appreciate. You understand your self worth and the value and everything. So I'll end off with saying that because I think that because life gets so busy and so chaotic at the same time, we forget to put that mask. Like I think Bruce has said earlier, to put that mask back on ourselves because we can't continue to pour into people or to things or our family if our cup is empty. And right. And so being able to take yourself out on a date and just have a book with you, you don't know that that's your thing if you don't spend time with yourself to understand what your thing is. And so I would end off with saying this phenomenal topic. I know I was quiet for a long portion, but I'm constantly taking mental notes. And I will say to the people watching on YouTube or on the social media platforms, keep tuning in to the men's circle because you can get so much value, especially if you're walking down a path of towards that dark side where there's no light. Like you can come and get plugged in for an hour, 2 hours, and it could re-energize you to be connected with like-minded individuals, right? Because going back to what I was saying about the environment piece, the environment that you place yourself in will determine your success, right? It could either pull you closer to that dark side or pull you away from it. And I think that with all that said, I'm very grateful for this platform to have a voice and be able to continue to grow with these brothers and for the virtual brothers as well. And so that's my time. I appreciate y'all, man. Thanks for the great talk.
Appreciate you, brother. Tim, what you got?
Yeah, I'll go. And look, Glenn never disappoints, right? Got his hands rubbed, he delivered. But it's funny because I tie it into human necessity, right? We talk about food, water, clothes, shelter, but I always like to add love and purpose. If you don't have all those things, physically survive with just the food, water, and shelter and the clothes. Um, but what makes life truly worth living and makes you sustain and make you continue to willing to put food and water in your body is if you got the love and you have the purpose. Now, there's going to be times where that, as men, we put a lot of our love and our purpose. It's externally driven to us. There's going to be times where we got to drive it ourselves. And you got to get, I love what you said, Glenn, to date yourself, man. Like, think about that. Everybody that's listening or watching, if you were to take yourself on a date, do you even have any clue what that would look like? When's the last time you really thought about what would you enjoy? Like, how would you spend a day just for you? When's the last time you even thought about that? When's the last time you did something for yourself? Like, there's some crazy thoughts that you could think of when you think of that. And if you're not happy with, if your life lacks purpose, because I believe self-worth is tied into what your purpose is and how you're progressing towards fulfilling your purpose. I think that's where a lot of self-worth comes into. I think of Shawshank Redemption. I think of get busy living or get busy dying. You got two choices. You could either, one, take some reflection, some accountability, and think, okay, why am I purposeless? What would give me a purpose? And then start drawing up a plan to get there. If that's, you want to be a more engaged parent or a more engaged spouse, then challenge yourself and give yourself that purpose and that focus. Whatever it is, you want to be a better manager or leader at your work, challenge yourself um, a little purpose goes so long. When I think about the times where I felt like I cost too much, like I said earlier, when I look back on it, it's I didn't see the chaos I was causing was more than the value I felt I was creating and the purpose that I held. Um, and when anytime I've ever had a low moment, it's because I felt my purpose was low. I didn't have anything I was working towards. So that's my final thoughts. Get busy living, get busy dying. Plan, figure out why you're not where you want to be, and just plan. Think about how you think, envision the life you want, and then start thinking of the little steps to get you there.
I'm with all that. I love that date yourself too, Glenn. Because when I was single, and even with my wife and I'm very intentional on the dates that we take. Um, like I think things out, I think them through. Even when I proposed to her, like there was this. And now I can't remember the name of this device to save my life, but it's a puzzle that you have to decode and then open up, and her proposal was inside of that. But like I'm this very detail oriented person when it comes to dating and nurturing and caring for others. And I can't say that I've like, if you ask me, like my wife was out of town, she's like, "What are you gonna do while I'm gone?" I don't know, play video games with my brother Tim and his wife. Like I don't know, nothing. Eat a piece of pizza. I don't. If there was no intentionality behind what I would do for myself 2 days alone. It was just like I'm just going to exist and wait for you really to kind of come back to I guess have worth again, right? But one of the things when I asked my wife if she missed me, I was like, "So you missed me yet?" And she was like, "I missed you the moment I walked out the door." And maybe she was being facetious, but it was like, wow, like from a perspective of self worth, I was in this space where it was like, dang, you might have thought you wasn't even worthy to be missed. And here she is gassing you up a little bit with some with some I missed you the moment I left your presence. Um, but I say that to say that sometimes we need to reflect on how much we miss ourselves as well, how much we miss being us, how much we miss valuing us. I'm the same way, Tim. If you look at my closet, I got shoes from probably when Ezekiel was born. I don't even know. Like, I don't wear them often, and so they're just still there. I got shirts from when Ezekiel was born. Ezekiel's 21 years old now. I still have shirts from when he was an infant. But I mean, I buy things for me, but it's always like, oh, I got to buy some polos because I need polos for work, or oh, I got to buy this outfit because I'm going on vacation. But it's not very often where I'm going to simply say, you know what? I want to go and spend some money on me. And it's funny because during my anniversary this year, I'm sorry, um, I went and bought myself a PlayStation 5. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy myself a PlayStation 5 for our anniversary. Bought it for me. And then I turned around and spent twice as much on my wife. That guilt. Because I couldn't buy you something less than what I got. I got to buy you something twice the amount of what I got. Because now that justifies that I'm at about 50% of what you're worth. um, but for me tonight, man, really is just a ongoing conversation, an ongoing dialogue that I have to have regarding self worth. I feel like I've come quite a long way. There's still moments where I probably feel like, dang, I wish I don't have to wake up, didn't have to wake up ever again. But like you said, Glenn, it's a very quick man. But I'm like, nah, I got stuff to do and life to live, and things to bring into the world. So there's still a lot that I have left to do before I can hang it up indefinitely. But these are the conversations that I think we as men need to have with other men, and these are the conversations that I think that we need to have with ourselves about our self worth. and really begin to check in with ourselves more frequently on the worth that we perceive ourselves to have. Because oftentimes, I think when we get to the space of suicidal thoughts, though it feels like it's a quick moment, there's some things that have been chipping away at our self worth that get us to that point. I don't think that I'm waking up and life is just going great and I'm in this high functioning, high happy mood. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, suicide. Oh, no, I'm back. It's like there's the decline that takes place. And sometimes it's steep, but oftentimes it's very gradual. It's like less than a 1% grade on a hill. It's very gradual. You just kind of going down. So you don't feel it until you're at the bottom of the hill and you're looking up and you're like, oh, shoot, I'm at the bottom of the mountain again. And then that's when that suicidal thought hits. And now it's a little harder to recover and bounce back up. So tonight for me is really about just being more intentional about assessing my value. And I'm gonna be a little greedy. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be a little greedy. I'm about to start assessing my value every single day. Every day. Like, yeah, I'm about a 10. Can't tell me nothing. I'm about a 10 today. Can't tell me nothing. Like, I'm going to assess my value regardless if people agree with it. I'm going to assess it every single day. So that way, when I do have moments where I'm questioning my value, all I got to do is check back in with what yesterday's price was. And as my man says, today's price is not the same as yesterday's price. My value is going to go up every single day, even on the days where I feel like I might not all have it all together, might not all be there, things may not be going my way. Yesterday's price is not the same as today's price. You're going to have to pay a little bit more. Really quick, coming from the live chat before I go into the takeaways from tonight. Mr. says, 2 days alone, I'm watching Kung Fu movies in my drawers. I'm talking into the fan. I'm talking to the fan to sound like a robot and I'm eating Oreos. I love it.
He's doing it right. My man is doing it right. He got a plan.
That sounds like a hell of a weekend right there.
He said, I'm talking into the fan. I'm with it. Great says, yep. Knowing you and your self-worth is dope. And then he said again, yesterday's price is not today's price. As always with the Wednesday word, with the men's circle, I kind of keep track of takeaways. And it was actually hard for me because I was listening so intently today that I almost didn't. I had to go back. I was like, wait a minute, I grabbed that. But I always like to share some of the takeaways from tonight's conversation. The first takeaway is your self-worth can never be overpriced. And that, Tim, that you literally came out the gate with that. Like, I feel like I'm overpriced. Your self-worth can't be overpriced. You're the market. Supply and demand of economics says if you have the supply and you can control the demand, you can never be overpriced. So your self-worth can never be overpriced. Takeaway number 2 is attach your stock to you. Going back to that company aspect, instead of trying to attach your self-worth to people who will let you down, abandon you, give up on you, love you sometimes, instead of attaching it to all those things, attach your stock, your self-worth to you. That way you have the benefit of controlling the market on how your value is. That's why I can sit here and say every day my price is going to go up. Every day. Because I control the market because it's attached to me. Takeaway number 3 is you're worth returning the plate. Bruce, you're worth returning the plate. In my case, I'm worth AC or air conditioning. But Bruce, that was pivotal because even when I said I'm worth air conditioning, the you're worth returning the plate hits me because that is something that I have always been like, nah, don't say nothing. Just eat it. And it wasn't like, oh, they're going to spit in your food. It was just like, no, like, don't be that guy, right? Don't be that guy. You mean the guy who pays for food and wants it brought out the way that he paid for it? Don't be that guy. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be that guy. And so that takeaway for me was really clutch. You are worth returning your plate. And you don't have to be a jerk about it when you do it, but don't feel bad about the fact that you want something the way you paid for it because you're worth that. Takeaway number 4 is don't fall for the loyalty discount. That loyalty discount.
Mm.
Not and I think I would follow that up with don't fall for the loyalty bonus either, because there's the discount where they already knew you were worth more than what they were giving you, but then there's the bonus that they'll give you to try to keep you to stay, to keep that loyalty, but then they won't give you no more raises or they won't pay you no more attention. It's almost like when if this is gonna sound really horrible, but I'm gonna say it anyway. It's almost like if you you're married, right? And your wife is like, every night you want to try to have sex. Not tonight, not tonight, not tonight. And then some girl walks by that looks good, and she's like, so what do you want to do tonight? Nothing. Like, what do you mean? What do I want to do tonight? But it's almost like that when you're in a relationship where you're neglected until there's a possibility that you might give someone else attention. And then it's like, wait a minute, let me give you attention so that you can get your focus back on me so I can go back to neglecting you. Don't fall for the loyalty discount.
Right, and then they break up with you and they get in shape. They get that revenge body. Ain't that shit funny?
That's crazy to
Ain't,
me.
ain't that shit funny?
Like, hey, see,
Go
you
ahead.
want me
Didn't mean to interrupt.
nah, you want me to be in the hospital with you, but you didn't want me, then I feel you. Anyway, takeaway number 5, find the purpose of your worth. I am an advocate of without purpose that at some point we give up on everything if we don't have a purpose. So be willing to find the purpose that attaches to your worth and motivates you to continue to drive your worth upward. Because anytime you have a purpose, even like if it's just like, let's say you go to the gym and you work out, right? You wake up in the morning, you go to the gym and you work out. Now, when you wake up, you don't necessarily want to get out of the bed, but it's your purpose to go to the gym that will say, let me go ahead and get these gym clothes on, get up, get at it, and get it done. And by the time you get back from the gym, you feel better than you would have had you just laid in the bed or went back to sleep. Allow your purpose, find your purpose so your purpose can allow it, your worth to be self propelling, your self worth to be self propelling. And then lastly, I have number 6 is increase your value honestly and intentionally. The honest part is if you're a bum in this moment and your self worth is low because you're making bum choices, like be honest with yourself about it. Don't be like, oh, my self worth is through the roof. Nah, not if you're doing, and it's not by my standard, please believe. But if it's by your standards, you're doing bum activities. It's hard to really say, oh well, my self worth is super high. The other part of that is if you're lying to yourself that your self worth is high when it's not, you won't take the intentional action necessary to actually improve and increase your self worth. You'll sit there at this faux value of perceived self worth. And then when life really shows up and smacks the crap out your face, you're going to dip. And it's going to be hard to recover because you were starting from a place lower than that you knew you were at, that was lower than it really what you professed for it to be. So anytime you want to increase your value, make sure you're increasing that honestly and intentionally. So that's what I have for you guys tonight. As I said, I have something else that I want to share. So I did have at least the graphic for the conference that I wanted to share with you guys. So again, as I said at the beginning of this men's circle, we're going to have our first in-person event. The Men's Circles presents Legacy, self-worth, legacy. Man, we could go a whole nother hour on that, but this is what is coming up. This will be again on Sunday, September 24th, 2023. The time is at 9:30 is when we're starting. We're going to do a networking between 9:30 and 10. And then we're going to have the conference between 10 and 4. We will actually have brunch. I think in the agenda, I have that between 11 and 12. We'll have brunch. It's at the Sutter Fort Hotel. Again, and I was thinking about this while I was looking at this graphic. It says, let the fires of this brotherhood purge the impurities from the hearts of men. And there's a lot when I think about this from the perspective of fire burning impurities. fire burning impurities to me is the accountability that we have to one another as brothers, as men who say that they're men, and the accountability that comes with that. Being able to really burn out some of the self-inflicted wounds that we've created with ourselves, and then some of the uh, attacks that wounds we have from attacks that have been inflicted from others. The registration price is $100. Again, it includes brunch. We're going to have group workshops, and it's an opportunity for you to sit and meet with, like Glenn said earlier, like-minded men that are interested in like-minded development. So if you're in the Sacramento area or will be in the Sacramento area September 24th, stay tuned to the First Row Instagram page. That's where I will put the link up for the registration form, and you'll be able to register for that. Registration will cut off. Excuse me. Registration will cut off for that. I believe it's the 12th of September because I have to have final head count to them by the 12th of September. So you got about a little under a month to register. But again, it'll be anywhere from 10 to 15 men that are in this micro conference. Space is limited, so if you want to have a seat, don't slack on your laurels. You want to get it done. But other than that, that's what I have for you guys this evening. There's so much more to come on the men's circle. I think in this season we have three more. One, two, three. Yeah, three more men's circle, and I think the greatest part will be is that the last men's circle of this season will be right after the conference. So if you want more details on that, you can always contact me at at firstrow.com. But stay tuned to the First Row Instagram page. You'll find more to come on that. Other than that, that's what we have for you this evening. So much a pleasure to have you brothers sit with me on this circle this evening, talk about self-worth as men, and how we can begin to start moving our self-worth out of the providership and the service that we provide to others, and more so bringing it in home and in-house to ourselves. Other than that, thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, if you like this video, share it. If you share this video, like it. I'm always happy to engage with you in the live chat. Thank you for the brothers that were in the live chat tonight. And for those who are watching via the replay, happy to engage with you in the comment section. That is up until the next segment comes up. And then after that, we move on to the next segment. But until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless. Thanks for sitting on the first row.